Every coffee needs a lotus.
It's nice easing back into old routines, only now with extra care. Let's do it for ourselves, for our loved ones, for everyone's safety.
Hurry up, let's go. Let's go.
And staying safe starts at home.
Nice.
From how we work and learn, to the little ways we find joy. If you must head out, take extra care. Making a small effort, being mindful, they go a long way to keeping us all safe. The health of all depends on each one of us. So let's work together, using new tools and keeping to our new habits to protect the people we love. At work, let's all be good team players.
Hi, morning. How are you? Good.
A little distance between us today will be good for us all tomorrow. A little care can protect the one thing that means the world to us. So let's do our part.
The views and opinions expressed by the speaker Host, commentator, or other third party in Ariva webinars, e-learning events, and/or virtual masterclass are those of the speaker, host, commentator, or third party and do not necessarily reflect and represent the views and opinions of Ariva. Furthermore, Ariva does not warrant, express, or imply the merchantability and fitness for a particular purpose of any product information, service, or process presented by the speaker, host, commentator, or third party, and Ariva specifically disclaims any legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, completeness, or usefulness of any product information, service, or process presented. Finally, material or information presentation, opinion, process, or service on any trade name, trademark, manufacturer, or otherwise during Ariva webinars, e-learning events, and/or virtual masterclass do not constitute or imply Ariva's endorsement or recommendation of such opinion, process, service, item, or organization.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Ariva Academy's free live webinar with our topic this afternoon, Managing Generational Differences in the Workplace, Understanding Different Generations, including Incoming Gen Alpha. We have a really interesting topic this afternoon, and I am excited to be with everyone. By the way, I'm Kate, and I will be with you as your host, and of course, learning with all of our participants this afternoon. Now, to ensure that our webinar will run smoothly, we have a few reminders. Ariva is committed to protecting your privacy, hence stricter security of this webinar has been implemented. For better viewing of your Zoom experience, we encourage you to please update your Zoom application by visiting their website. And for those of you who are using their mobile gadgets to view this webinar, you can go to either the Google Play Store or the Apple Store so you can download and install the Zoom app. Now, I want to know who here is joining an Ariva Academy webinar for the first time. If it's your first time, can you type hi in the chat box? And also let us know where you're located right now. I am here in Parañaque City, and we're having very beautiful weather this afternoon. I hope wherever you are, you're having beautiful weather as well. Hi, we have a lot of friends who are out of town, actually. So let me just read. We have a lot of participants from Agusan del Norte, from Baguio, from Bataan, from Batangas, from Benguet, from Bicol, from Cagayan de Oro, from Camarines Sur, from Cebu, from Dagupan, from Davao, from Gensan, from Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, from Iloilo, from Laguna, from Leyte, from Negros Oriental, Nueva Ecija, Occidental Mindoro, Palawan, Pampanga, Pangasinan, Puerto Princesa, from Tarlac, from Vigan, and Zamboanga. I'm seeing from Dumaguete, from Pasig, from Bukidnon, from Cagayan de Oro, from Mindoro, from Bulacan, from Taguig, from Malaybalay, Bukidnon, yes, from Batangas. A lot of our participants are really from out of town. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. Good afternoon, Philippines. But aside from all over the Philippines, we also have participants who are outside the country right now. So we have participants who are viewing us from Doha, Qatar, from Dubai, from Malaysia, from Thailand and Taiwan. Hello, Philippines, and hello, Asia. I am very happy to have everyone here with us this afternoon. And to those who have attended in the past, welcome back. We're happy to have you here again with us. Now, let us do an audio check, okay? I want to make sure that once our speaker is on screen, you will be able to hear the discussion loud and clear. So please type 111 here in the chat box if you're able to hear me clearly. You can also type 222 if you can't hear anything, or 2121 if you can hear me, but the sound is breaking up or I sound laggy, or question mark if you don't understand what is happening. We'll try to help you out. Let me check the chat box. Okay, I am seeing a lot of 111s and no other numbers. So thank you for that. Thank you for the feedback. Later, we'll have a 10-minute break, and I will be announcing that. And something exciting will happen during that break time. So watch out for that. Now, participants' microphones will be temporarily disabled by our administrator during the discussion to avoid interruptions. But for those of you who might have questions, we'll have a Q&A portion at the end of our session. During that time, you can click the raise hand button and you can ask your question directly to our speaker. Or you can also type your questions here in the chat box, and then I'll be reading them later. An e-certificate of attendance will be awarded to participants who will successfully complete the entire virtual masterclass. And as proof of your attendance, I am encouraging everyone to turn on their cameras. Okay, all throughout our session, please turn them on. We would love to be able to interact with all of our participants. Now, they will be available, the certificates will be available 3 to 5 days after the e-learning session. Please help us build and improve our service with your comments and feedback. You can scan the QR code that will bring you to the feedback form. At the end of our session, please fill out the form and then send it back to us. Thank you for that. There you go. Now I'm sure you're all excited to get to know our speaker. Let me introduce her. She is an HR leader with over 17 years of experience in various industries. Prior to her current stint as Vice President for Acquire BPO, she was the Director for Recruitment and HR at Harting Hanks, an HR Assistant Vice President with Genpact, an HR Manager with Resorts World Manila, and an HR Assistant Manager with Vitel. Her areas of expertise are fast-paced volume recruiting, HR business partnership, employee engagement, and organization development. She was certified by the Human Capital Institute as a strategic HR business partner in 2016. And since then, her advocacy has been to help fellow local HR professionals to be strategic partners to the business. She is a registered COPC coordinator, which greatly helps her to effectively support her current organization's drive to operational excellence. She's recently hailed as one of the top 100 Filipinos to follow in LinkedIn for inspiration and learning, and by the World HRD Congress as one of the top 101 most fabulous HR tech leader in the world in 2020. She seeks to help advance the state of human resources, not only in her own organization and industry, but also in the entire country by sharing her knowledge and insights to the HR community. So everyone, let us welcome our speaker. Yes, the fabulous Miss Ariva De Borja.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Good afternoon.
I want to hear from everybody. Wave your hand if you can hear me and see me. Are we good? Yes? Yes? All right. Again, good afternoon, fellow Filipino professionals from not only the Philippines, not only Metro Manila, not only the Philippines, but all over the world. I heard, Kate, that we do have participants from other countries.
Yes.
And, kudos to Ariva for really going international already. I am so, so proud of your achievements. All right. So the topic for this afternoon is managing the multi-generational workforce. Aray, parang masakit yung topic. Multi-generational workforce. Saan kaya ako sa generation na yon? Don't worry, we are not to talk about that. I want to begin this talk by sharing a story with you. This happened, fairly recently. And there was, okay, so the story goes like this. There was, true to life, there was a gathering of executives and senior leaders in a company. And it was facilitated by a consultant. The consultant said, it is effective when you can not only recall the name, but actually see an image of the client, the person that you are talking about or making a plan for. Okay, so this was a business strategy meeting. And one of the executives in the room made a joke and said, can we make the image inflatable? So you know how it is, right? When you're at the mall and you create an image of yung parang balloon na inflatable, parang si Michelin, ganyan, right? And everybody laughed, except for a millennial. The only millennial in the room was actually thinking, ooh, we're going to do metaverse. So you see the difference in perspective there, right? There was one person thinking about the metaverse, and everybody else was laughing about having an inflatable image of a person. Today, again, the topic is managing such diversity in the workplace. So I want to begin by actually sharing my screen. Yes, I did prepare a slide for you, don't worry, which shows you that topic, right? And tells you here by this image that, yes, we have a multi-generational workforce and it's very diverse. You see in here 6 different groups. Am I counting it right? We have the builders, or also called the traditionalists, sometimes called the silents. They were born 1920s to 1945. But you might ask, bakit nandyan pa yan? Why is that still there? Retired na yung mga yan. Wala na sila sa workforce. For many companies, yes, but there are some companies that cannot afford the brain drain, that they hire their senior and their experts as consultants. For example, the battery engineers. That's hard to actually train for and develop confidence on, right? Can you imagine if the batteries of our phones are being made by non-experts or designed by non-experts? That could be catastrophic, right? So there are some industries that still need them. We still have, of course, the baby boomers. We've got Generation X, Generation Y, or the millennials. We don't stop there. We have the post-millennials. They won't be happy being called post-millennials, but they're the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas. So if my screen moves, right, then I could take you to the next slide, but it doesn't. So hang on. Stop sharing and try it again. But so far, does everybody follow? These are the different generations so far that is documented in the workplace. And hopefully this again does not hang, but let's talk about the baby boomers. I will not talk much about the traditionalists, the silents anymore, because there's only very few of them in the workplace. But let's talk about the boomers. The boomers are aged, based on my notes, 78 to 63, roundabout, right? And the retirement age in the Philippines is optional at 60, mandatory at 65. I think every HR practitioners know that. What do they typically do. They typically value hard work. They highlight health. They like friendly competition. Health meaning healthy relationships in the workplace, in healthy competitions. We will talk more about that, but just for you to picture out who they are. Yeah. So now you have someone in mind when we say baby boomers, right? They're probably with you during Sunday afternoons, right? Okay, it's hanging again. Wow, technology. And then we're going to move on to the next one. Baby boomers followed by, let me share this, Generation X. Generation X were born between 1964. Elvis, come on. We're done with you. Hang on. And Ariva's tech team is already trying to ready their backup. I'll try one more time, folks. So you've got baby boomers, and then we have the Generation X. If my computer will allow me, I will move on to it. There you go. Okay, so now we have Generation X, born between 1965 to 1980. They're loyal. They're creative and they're independent. They were the first to actually talk about work-life balance in the workplace. They value feedback and they want equal access to facts. For you to imagine who they are, here's Javelin. Your parents, right? Depending on your age. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next generation. It looks like I am really blowing it with my tech. The most probably controversial generation. Wave your hand if you belong to this generation. Ooh, right? The millennials. Most controversial, arguably from now until maybe about 2025 will comprise the most in the workplace. These are the millennials, also called the Google generation. And we were born between 1981 to 1995. We emphasize technology as a way of life. And there is this one thing that for some reasons is really very apparent amongst many, many millennials, and that is multitasking. We can't. While we're meeting, what are we holding? Our phones. We tend to be fidgety, like we're always there, and then something else is running in our heads, and then we're jotting down notes, but we're also listening. Right? Tell me it's not true for many. May mga natatawa, right? Kasi may mga charged us guilty, right? So this is us, the millennials. Now let's move on to the next generation, because it's not just us that is actually now invading the workforce. There's also Gen Z. Who are the Gen Zs? They're the digital natives. They're the true digital natives. Okay, they were born between 1995 to 2009. They had just entered the workforce, but oh boy, they're a different breed. A lot of people think they're post-millennials, but later, during this session, I hope to be able to share with you the distinct, I'll say that again, the distinct differences between Generation Y and Z, the millennials and the Zs, because there's a huge difference and there are implications not only for HR but also for business owners. So if we have any entrepreneurs here, anyone who owns the business, there's a segment here which will make you think about how to prepare between the Gen Y and the Gen Zs. Gen Zs are motivated by security. They're mostly entrepreneurial. So they think always of ways how to earn money. And I'm not sure if you see that, but I see that day in, day out with my daughter. She's 18 years old, and she always thinks about how to make money out of something. That's just very natural for her. They also want to be judged for their own identity, for their own effort. They do not like being associated with anything or anyone else. So that again is quite distinct compared to the collective nature of the millennials. They also are into doing multiple things, but for them, it's about toggling between multiple applications. It's not just about doing multiple things, but like really multiple applications. And you'll be surprised with how much applications they can run and how easy it is, how natural it is for them to just figure out how to hover and how to use different technologies. Now, we think they are advanced, right? We think the Gen Zs are advanced. Let's find out more. So for the Gen Zs, Phygital is a coinage by, you will find out later, the Stillmans. It is a book about Generation Zs at the workplace. And what it is saying is, in their studies, they found that it's not just that Gen Zs are digital. That's not all that they are. For a Gen Z person, everything around them, places, people, things actually have virtual representations. Okay, so for example, your safe, vault, right? If we have things to keep, our parents, di ba, mga alahas, pera, saan nilalagay? Sa vault, right? And you have the combination of the vault or the safe. But what is it now? With these generations, it's actually online, right? And it even has the Burkean image to actually show that it is secured. They're into hyper customization. So it goes back to they want to be known as their own person. They want to be the individuals that they are, right? And they don't want to just copy. It's always about getting it personalized. Gen Zs too are very realistic. For them, if you were to live this life, you've got to be real. So transparency is a key value for Generation Z. What is FOMO? Does everybody know what FOMO is? Can I see your faces? Or give me a thumbs up if you know what FOMO is. FOMO, yep. Raymond, thank you. FOMO, fear of missing out, right? They need to always be there. That is Gen Z. They're also the generations that embraced we economy. What? We economy. What are those? These are collaborations. So let's say, and shared ones. Like for example, the most known is Grab or Uber, right? Before, you don't get into a stranger's car. Your parents would tell you, don't hop into a stranger's car. But now what is it? It's a business. This generation grew up knowing that to be a norm, so that you can use shared rights. What else? Well, before we stay at hotels or hostels, what do we have now? Airbnb, right? Now you open your house to earn money as well. That goes back to them being entrepreneurial, making money out of what you already have, right? So again, a very famous trademark of Gen Z is the we economy. DIY. Before, did you notice before we have to have a layout artist, someone that creates the posters, right? And can use Adobe, for example. Or maybe you need Getty Images for your posters. But now you only need one app, Canva, right? And while waiting for your FX ride, you can actually create a poster. This is very natural for Gen Zs. All of these, you see, their values, they're really driven. Okay, so you can see here very particular characteristics. And I have Sam Smith there just because, right? But very particular characteristics of this generation. Okay, wow, it's getting more modern and modern. We don't stop there. We do not. We have more. We have this brand new current generation, Generation Alpha, born between 2010 to 2024. So they are just about to be born, right? There is the children of millennials. I have one of my own. He is 11. And these are the most educated, well-immersed generation. People that belong to that generation are most educated, most well-informed, right? Aren't you surprised by your children? Like how much they know about data security, for example. We didn't know those things before, right? But these kids, they know them, right? And they listen to music like this. Let me just...
Tastes like strawberries on a summer evening.
They do this while playing, talking to their friends on Discord, right? And also talking to you. Isn't that amazing? This will be the future of our workforce. And we have got to be ready for these people. So far, we talked about the generations, but let's take a look. Let's take a look at the summary, right, of the differences. The backgrounds are different. By the way, I did not create this. The source is actually down there at the bottom left corner. But basically, the maturists, traditionals, the silents, they were born before 1945, and you know their background: World War I, baby boomers, World War II. Right? That was the challenge that molded who they were. And then you have Generation X, which, if I could just move this, the end of Cold War, right? The fall of the Berlin Wall in Russia. Generation Y, 9/11. That's what they remember by. That's the greatest catastrophe that has shaped this generation. Generation Z, this is not updated, but the pandemic. And so does Gen Alpha. COVID-19 pandemic has a lot of influence to generations Z and A. The numbers that you see in there were at the time that this was published, but later I'll show you what the predictions were already in terms of the number, the share of the generation Y and Z in the workforce. Aspirations were different. For the first generation here, it was about owning a house, right? It was about having your own roof. Baby boomers is about having security, job security. Generation X is about work-life balance. They were the first that introduced that. Generation Y is freedom, flexibility, right? Generation Z, it's interesting, seeks for security and stability. You see, they're not so much like the millennials. And I actually see that in my daughter. I could read on and on, but we will jump to communication, because I feel that that is important for the HR practitioners in this room. You cannot, if you're in HR, you cannot do away from being the communicator of the company. And so it is important that we know the best means to communicate, the most effective means to communicate to the different generations. For the traditionalists, it would be formal letters, formal memos. It doesn't mean it does not apply to all the other generations. It's just basically saying for this generation, that is the most effective way, the one that resonates with them the most. Baby boomers, television, Generation X, personal computer, and email and text messages. Sorry, telephones for baby boomers, combination of TV and telephone. For Generation X, it's combination of personal computer, email, and text messages. For Generation Y, it would be your tablet, smartphone, text, social media. And for Generation Z, it's so much more modern. This is where you have your driverless cars, your 3D nano computing. Devices are handheld. You know, having this kind of watch is just, you know, natural for them. And, you know, they naturally track what they do using that. And they tend to be actually very dependent, unfortunately, on those gadgets that sometimes, if we talk about the behaviors now, it becomes hard for Generation Z because they built their lives around technology to have alternative plans. So if you're a team leader, a project manager, managing people or managing a project, and you have fairly young people, let's say Generation Z within your team, you just have to watch out for, you know, enabling them to have alternatives when technology does not work. Okay. With this Generation 2, you can just FaceTime them. So we'll talk more about how to use these technologies more effectively later. There are also preferences for them to actually understand you, for you to get what you want out of a person from a particular age group or generation. And if you are needing to meet to get decisions, to get approvals, there are more effective ways for us to deal with these generations. For the traditionalists, that would be face-to-face. For the baby boomers, they're, you know, ideally for face-to-face too, but they'll be okay with online communication. Generation X, online face-to-face wouldn't really make a difference. Generation Y prefers face-to-face for some reasons. And for Generation Z, they don't just listen to you. They actually crowdsource for other ideas while they're talking to you. So here you can see how people tend to listen and respond to what's being asked of them. Now, I really have this issue with tech, but fortunately, I'm not from Gen Z, so we can do this. You see the differences. And so now, because there are differences, naturally there's friction. Do you agree? The opening story that I gave you, it was a not necessarily an overt friction, but that was kind of creating a difference in appreciation on the next step out of that meeting, right? On the strategy out of that meeting. The verbatims that I am showing on screen are actually real verbatims, feedback from a survey conducted by Live Career in August of 2022. So this is very recent. They had 1,000 plus participants, and they asked questions regarding differences across age groups. And here you can see, diba? There really are some concerns. Tawag natin dyan, hanash, right? May mga hanash sila, like, look at that. Younger folks want promotions and recognition far sooner than they really deserve. Is this the first time you've heard of that? Diba may mga joke, millennials, kaka-interview pa lang, gusto manager na agad. Do you hear some people complain about that? I hear my hiring managers complain. Maybe about 2 out of 10 say that. And what do the younger ones say? Well, sometimes working with older people can be tedious. So the feeling is mutual. There's also some issue of trust, seemingly. Look at that. The younger always chat and do some irritating things in the workplace. You know, this reminds me, one time there was a meeting, and it was between, some executives and some managers presenting. The manager that was presenting was doing this while listening to the executive. And the executive was like, do you need to respond to someone? And pause the meeting, only to find out that the person was actually jotting down notes using her phone, right? So again, differences that if we do not spell out and bring to surface, if we do not have deliberate strategies on how to solve for them, can really create some friction in the workplace. And of course, where there is friction, there's HR to resolve the situation. Is that right? Grievances, HR? So obviously there's a debate, right? Does age matter? How much does it matter? Let's take a look at the results of the study of Live Career. One of the questions that they asked, if I could just move my screens here, was age plays an important role. Hang on. All right, there you go. Age plays an important role in how competent an employee is. Do you see the answer there? I'm going to annotate so that I'm sure that you are with me. So the question was, right? The question was, does age play a role in a person's competence? Almost 9 out of 10 agree that yes, it plays a role. Next question. I find it hard to have someone younger than me as my manager or supervisor. Taking orders from a millennial when you're a boomer, is that an issue? What does the survey say? 81%, or 8 out of 10 say yes, that is difficult. What about preference? Of course, we make friends in the office, right? And it's important to have friends in the workplace. Who do people want to be with? The question was, I prefer to work with people around my age. You still see 4 out of 10 saying yes, right? Some would say younger than me is fine, older than me is fine, doesn't matter. but you still see some preference. And then let's take a look at the last here. I could move my screen. Hang on. The last is, if I could move my screen, because I can't. Okay. Making different generations work together can lead to conflict. May issue ba talaga? 78% think the answer is yes. So is this a relevant topic? What do you think? Is it? Do I get a thumbs up for yes? Do you want to continue? I guess it is for you, right? Because you came here for this session. Aside from you want a certificate, I'm pretty sure you came here because if it's not you struggling with it, you probably see some people having to navigate through this difficulty. And then it doesn't work again. So, Technology. Sometimes I love you, sometimes not. Great. Let's take a look at more findings from the study. In terms of competency, what are the strengths of each generation? Here's what we see. This is a survey, okay? So this is not based on the results of any test or anything like that. This is strengths according to people belonging to different generations, okay? So according to Gen Zs, their number one strength is computer literacy. That's followed by public speaking, communication, leadership, coding, and problem-solving skills. Next, according to millennials, their number one competency is communication, followed by problem-solving, followed by computer literacy and social media skills, analytical thinking, and leadership skills. What does that say about millennials? What's up? If we already are about 40% of the workforce now, because by 2022, millennials would have been about 40.5% of the workforce, right? That's a little bit concerning if that were true. Gen Xers believe that the main strength, the number one strength that they hold is problem solving, followed by communication, computer literacy, logical thinking, and then leadership. Baby boomers believe that logical thinking is their number one skill, followed by leadership, then public speaking, problem solving, and communication skills. So you see, there are some things here that are number one on some generations and last for some generations. For example, millennials believe that their number one skill is communication, whilst boomers think that communication skills is the least in their skills. Leadership is number two of their strengths, according to the baby boomers. Yet millennials think that's their last, that's their weakest. So you see here already some clear differences in terms of how people see their strengths at. According to the creators of this survey, they saw that there is a tendency for the older generations to give a lower rating for themselves compared to the younger generations, who may I don't know, depending on how one interprets it, they may need some more lessons of humility, or they're just probably really thinking that they're a lot better because they're more informed these days than the earlier generations. But again, you see there are some differences. This is really such a bummer. I'm sorry, but we're going to move on by sharing my screen again. So you see those differences, right? But when there are differences, there's also an opportunity to just really ask, okay, let's pause. We're different. Your strength is my weakness. My weakness is your strength. What does that mean? Must there really be a debate? In the same survey, participants were asked by Life Career. Again, this is over 1,000 people in the US. And they were asked if you were the one hiring, if you were the employer, would you hire for people coming from different generations? And the answer, as you can see, is actually yes. It just varies per age group, with Gen X stating it at the highest that yes, they will. You see, there's a little bit of contradiction here. Earlier, we saw that people feel that there are some conflicts arising from the differences. But also, in the same survey, they say that this diversity is actually positive. We'll see later how we can really make it positive. 89% believe so. Another question was that we can learn from each other. And 87% of the participants said, yes, we definitely can learn from each other. Might there be any curious minds at this point? While I'm again trying to make it work. If not, we'll move on. So, knowing that we're different, that our strengths and weaknesses complement each other, how can we leverage on this diversity across generations in the workplace? The first one is understanding that we are all in this together. Similar or not, different or not, we still have the same challenges day in and day out, and we still have these commonalities. What are those? Number one is the motivation to work. The same people that were asked had said that the meaning of work is what they work for. That's what they come here for in the workplace. 80% said it is about that. Not a lot about money. It is also about, for 60%, having exciting work to do. Okay, so if it's boring and we don't find a way to make it exciting, we're losing out on 60% already in terms of engagement, no matter what the generation is. Satisfaction versus prestige. It's more about intrinsic satisfaction and not what others think about my job. Family versus career. 78% say the motivation is the family. 9 out of 10 also highlight work-life balance. It's, yes, pinauso to ni Gen X, but now across all generations, work-life balance is a thing. Work-life balance is important. Teamwork has always been there, right? But there are some differences between some generations. Yet in general, 87% feel good about working with a team. 88% like sharing their knowledge to their colleagues. 60% prefer that there's teamwork. Listen to this, no? Kasi it lowers, di ba? 33% want individual work. So this is when you have your individual contributors just wanting their own space and time. You know, whenever I see people who wear their headset and just do this while they're working, as if they're not with a larger group, that's an indication. Read the body language. It's an indication that that person prefers to be working individually, right? As against 60% who love to be with the team most of the time, more often than not. 7% doesn't matter. What about this remote work? It's always been there prior to the pandemic, but it's been the most talked about, I think, in the workplace in the past 2-3 years, maybe 3 years now, right? 8 out of 10 of the survey takers are positive about remote work. It doesn't matter if it's Gen Z or if it's a baby boomer. The common preference is this. Now, 40% of them prefer, speaking of preference, to just work from home. 50% like on-site work more. Now, this was in August of 2022, 1,000 plus people in the United States, okay? So for those of you that have other opinions, yes, it might differ depending on where you are, but we see more and more people going back to on-site arrangement. 10%, it doesn't matter, okay? So considering those differences, what's the key? The key is not passing on judgment. I'll say that again. Not passing on judgment. Yes, there are natural tendencies, but the first that we need to do to be able to thrive in a workplace where there are diverse generations at work is to not have a judgment. Next is to accept them for who they are. No judgment, but accept them for who they are. And actually style step. When I say style step, I mean change your ways to adjust to the ways of the person that you're talking to or you're dealing with. For baby boomers, be mindful of their body language. Nonverbal communication is not noticed. For them, they actually notice it. I report to a baby boomer, and I have a natural tendency to do this when I'm thinking so hard and jotting down my notes and I'm being interrupted. And because I'm dealing with, someone from that generation, I tend to consciously remind myself that I cannot be so much like that as I am, right, with my other peers of the same age bracket when dealing with that person. Avoid speaking in an authoritative manner. I think this is obvious, right? Just because of how they were raised, you don't answer back pa nga eh, di ba? For the traditionalists. If you have reservations, then you have to raise it in a very, very polite manner. And you don't sometimes openly and directly just say it. Be willing to meet face to face because personal interaction means so much more to baby boomers. And then share details because they like knowing the details. There is a similarity with the next generation on this one. They also like knowing the details. And so it pays to know that both generations have such preference, right? if this works. All right. Generation X. So you see, they like updates to keep them in the loop. If they want detailed status updates, right? You see that at the lower side part of the screen. But there's this difference, the first one. They are very much open to informal settings. It's casual, lighthearted. And for the Gen Xers, the healthier discussion is one that goes back and forth. Okay, so it's a dual, right? You can make the conversation dynamic. They ask for your feedback, you can ask back. All right, that's one difference right there. For some reasons, sometimes you have to email when communicating with them. All right, millennials, equal playing field. They don't want to be talked down to, of course. They have a huge ego. It's coming from one millennial here. But they also want it lighthearted. Humor is a way to go. And, you know, for them, that character is important. If we have managers in the room and you have millennials reporting to you, positive reinforcement is important to these people. I sat down with some managers who would complain, why do I have to give perfect attendance award? It's their job to come to the office on time. Do I need to award them for that? They are paid for being on time, right? You are reprimanded for being late. That's not how it goes. But you know, kids these days, even my own children, the award that they look forward the most is perfect attendance. They would rather change a flight date than miss attendance at school, because they crave for, the millennials and post-millennials crave for positive reinforcements. In how many ever ways? Overuse technology if you have to. That's a kind of a weird advice, isn't it? But that's because it says overuse, because there's emphasis on how much more important technology is for this group. We depend on technology so much, and it's actually a combination of many different tools for this generation. Apps, text, emails, all the works. Let's take a look at Gen Z. Okay. If text message is good for a Gen Xer, an instant message is great for a millennial. For a Gen Z, sometimes you don't even have to say a word. You just need to send a GIF and they get it. Isn't it true? I mean, young people these days, they see a picture and they can't help but laugh. There's no knock knock, who's there? That's not their jokes anymore. They just look at a picture and they get it. You know why? Because their comprehension of many things around them is just so fast. They get it right away. In contrast, if you do death by words in a memo to these people, they're gonna lose their interest. And nobody wants that, because then the communication is not effective. Prioritize texting over talking. You know, again, this is not a hard, fast rule. It's just a tip, right? And for Gen Zs, it's also about personalizing. If you've been following, the one thing that's really standing out for the Gen Zs is that they want things personalized. Okay, and it captures their attention when it is. So if we are to hire, if we are to attract Gen Zs into the company, pay attention to what you say about your charities, for example, your advocacies, what you put in your website, what you put in your social media. Why do you think did the very popular and my favorite Coldplay have a lot of tickets of their world tour sold when they're just at cinemas. It's because it was in collaboration with charity groups advocating for environmental sustainability. Right? That for every sale, it goes to a good cause. And this generation is so much for that. Job descriptions, job specifications. These are the skills that you must hire for, right? If they don't have this, I'm not hiring these people. Well, you might want to think again. When Gen Zs dominate the workforce, they come with their individualized skills and traits and characteristics. And the prediction of many gurus in the talent acquisition space is that hiring managers might have to hire the smart ones. They have this skill and that skill, not necessarily what you've jotted down in the job description. So you hire them and then you match. Because they can do so many things, right? And because of that, of course, we need to partner with universities to get that shaped already. Para win-win. Then, of course, never ever not use technology for hiring for these people. In fact, if we are to attract Gen Zs and we're not yet using video for our ads, we're already losing. Because those 5 seconds TikTok videos are the ones that capture the attention of Gen Zs. I'm going to pause because I know I'm like 7 minutes late for Kate's break. Kate?
Yes, so thank you so much, Ms. Ivy. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go on a quick break. I mentioned a while ago that something exciting is about to happen during our break time because right now, Ariva is in the mood to give away prizes to 2 lucky participants. So we are going to play a game. And this is a game that I'm sure you're all very familiar with. Doesn't matter what age you are. The game is called Virtual Bring Me Game. So I am sure you're familiar with this game. It's a popular parlor game for kids, but we are going to play it here via Zoom. So this is how the game goes. I will be asking for a specific item, okay? For a specific item. And you have to be the first one to show it on screen. For example, I'll say, bring me a pen. The first one who would be showing the pen in front of their screen, in front of their cameras, would be our winner. And ano ang makukuha ng winner? You will be receiving 200 pesos that will go straight to your GCash account. Yay! That's 200 for you, probably for coffee later at the end of our session. So I hope you guys are ready. Are you ready? Show me a thumbs up if you're ready. Ready? So make sure your cameras are open. Turn on your cameras. Make sure you're in front of your cameras. Open your bags. Open the bags of your office mates, if ever. Let's see. And I am seeing a lot of people reaching under their tables, trying to get their bags. There you go. Here is the first item. Bring me an earbud. Oh, Francis is so fast. Francis Brian, congratulations. Francis, you will receive 200 pesos. So this is what you have to do. Please send your GCash account number privately to Ariva Academy Philippines here in the chat box. Okay, again, send it to us privately, okay? And then wait for your prize. Now, Francis, because you've won already, you won't be able to join the game anymore, okay? Let's give chance to your other co-participants. Okay, congratulations again, Francis. Now, for the rest of our participants, one more 200 pesos is at stake. This might be yours if you have this item. Bring me Katingko or Vicks. Katinko or Vix. Wow, Janina, you are very fast, Janina. Congratulations. Very fast. Parang nasa bulsa lang yata ni Janina. Janina, you won 200 pesos. Please send your GCash account number to Ariva Academy Philippines here in the chat box. Congratulations to our two winners. Congratulations and thank you to everyone for joining. I hope you guys had fun. I'll move on to my next announcements now. There you go. Again, wait for your prize, okay, for our two winners. Congratulations. Now stay on top of our insights and updates. Stay connected with Ariva Academy. You can join Ariva Academy's Facebook group. You can also like Ariva Academy's Facebook page. Follow Ariva Academy in LinkedIn and visit our website, www.ariva.com.ph. And I am inviting everyone to be a part of the growing Ariva Academy Viber community. You can scan this QR code and that will bring you instantly inside our Viber community. So we're looking forward to seeing you there. Now, for those of you who might have missed the free live webinars that we've had in the past, you can all catch them in our YouTube channel. So all you have to do is subscribe to these channels, Ariva Academy and Ariva Talks, because we will be uploading everything there, all of the free live webinars. We've started since 2020, so imagine how many free live webinars we have there in those channels already. Now, I'd like to invite you to some of our other upcoming learning events. Here are some of them. On March 9, we have Strengthening Communication Skills at Work, how to be more assertive in a hybrid work environment. Exceptional employee onboarding, setting new joiners for success through seamless onboarding experience. This will be the topic on March 10. On the same day, we also have ethics, privacy, and employee and clients data management, managing data privacy risk in today's global environment. This was very timely. Again, it will happen on March 15, we have employees withholding tax and fringe benefits tax strategy. March 15, developing a customer-centric culture. March 16, employment contract essentials, future-proofing work arrangement. On March 17, the 7th, effective technical and report writing skills for peak performance. The topic on March 22 is digital marketing and selling strategies to ramp up your sales. March 23, financial analysis for non-finance professionals, enhance your business acumen and financial analysis skills. The following day, March 24, we have strategic HRM and business partnering. March 29, supervisory leadership excellence, essential skills for proficiencies for great supervisor. March 30, competency-based HR management. March 31, managing and leading remote and hybrid workforce, maximizing efficiency and performance in today's dynamic business. Another free live webinar will happen on April 1, this time with the topic, boosting work productivity, coping with stress and anxiety in turbulent times. So I'm sure all of you will find this very helpful. This will be on April 1. On April 19, we have conducting successful organization and HR audits. And for those of you who are interested in inviting our speakers like Ms. Ivy to conduct an in-house program for your whole team or for your company, Ariva Academy can help you with that. We have in-house programs, so we can do it either virtual or on-site face-to-face. So give us a call or send us an email. Let us know what topic you have in mind. Here are some of the programs that we offer. But we have a lot more than that, okay? So let us know what you need and we'll help you partner with the right speaker under Ariva Academy Speakers Bureau for that. There you go. Now we'll give you a few more minutes to enjoy this break time. And then right after, we'll be back with our speaker. There you go. And now we're back. Hi, Miss Ivy. We're ready to go back to our discussion.
Siyempre, naka-mute ako. Can you all hear and see me?
Yes, now we can see you.
Natawa ako sa kating ko. Iba. Gusto kong sumali because I have that also in my tita kit on my bag. All right, we're going to move on with more insights. Hopefully, so far I've somehow been able to articulate to you the differences in the generations in the workplace and how we can style step if we're not from that generation. And it's not natural of us to do how they do what they do. And we're moving on with a little bit more insights because I don't know about you, but when it comes to managing differences across generations, for me, the characteristics of a boomer, Gen X, millennials, they are very easy to pronounce, meaning you can outright see them, right? But among the post-millennials, between millennials and Gen Z and God knows Gen A later, what are the differences? Because now we're making a lot of adjustments to the millennials, the workforce is, management is, right? But is that going to stay for a long time as Generation Z comes into the picture? I thought that the book by the Stillmans, this is a father and son, okay, and they were interviewed by LinkedIn, is actually offering some insights, practical insights. So instead of attempting to translate, I'm gonna let you watch it.
Welcome to Talent on Tap. I'm Brendan Brown. I work on the recruiting team here at LinkedIn, and I am excited to welcome David and Jonah Stillman to the show. They are the authors of Gen Z at Work, which is a very important book on a very important topic.
Hang on. You can hear the sound correct, yeah? You can hear it well? Yep, okay, thank you. That's good.
Topic for anyone in business today. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
David, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, so my name's David Stillman, and I've been studying the generations for 21 years. I'm the author of When Generations Collide and the M Factor, How the Millennials Are Rocking the Workforce. But I did see a big trend that people were talking so much about millennials that no one was paying attention to Gen Z. The leading edge is already 23, so in studying the generations, I thought it'd be really important to have a voice of that generation. So I invited my son, who at the time was only 16, to join the company, and ever since then, he's been really spearheading a lot of the Gen Z effort.
And I'm Jonah Stillman. I'm an 18-year-old public speaker specializing on the topic of connecting with my generation, Gen Z. As my dad mentioned, the generation after the millennials, and we are drastically different.
So lots of talk about generational shifts over the past decade or so. Define Gen Z for us.
Sure, Gen Z is the generation after the millennials, and the birth years would be 1995 to 2012. So the leading edge is already 23 and gainfully employed.
And your focus is generations at work specifically.
And in the marketplace.
And
so
the
how do we
marketplace.
recruit and retain them, or how do we market and sell to the different generations?
Got it. And what are the big traits that are most common amongst this generation?
In our book, Gen Z at Work, which was published just over a year ago, we identified the 7 key traits of connecting with Gen Z. And the first one that comes to my mind is that we're a very realistic generation. We're a generation that grew up in a time that necessarily wasn't the prettiest. Our parents, we saw struggles with the economy. We grew up post 9/11. So we're really a generation that's been surrounded by instability and unrest. So therefore, throughout our shopping trends and our workplace attitudes, we are just a very realistic generation at a very young age.
Got it. And say a little bit more about that. Stylistically, what does that mean?
Well, I think a lot of it, where the big surprise to everyone is you compare that to millennials,
Yep.
who grew up, economic expansion, everything was exciting. They had boomer parents telling them, you could be anything you want to be.
Yeah.
So a very different message than this generation got, which is more sort of be in survival mode, is what describes more of this generation.
Obviously, you're of this generation. Yeah. Share a little bit of sort of your perspective and your experience. Maybe just share, how do you view things in terms of workplace or how you like to get work done?
In the workplace, we're we enter, we're not necessarily as collaborative, we're much more competitive. We don't want anybody's nose in our business. Shockingly, we don't really necessarily like open office concepts. We're more about having our own space where we can, work without having to worry about distractions. So in the workplace, we are a lot different than millennials.
What about communication?
Well, definitely people, when I hear the word communication, they think of the youngest generation. The first thing they think of is cell phones, and all they want to do is text, and they don't want to have in-person communication. But we actually did 3 national studies for the book we wrote, and in the first one we asked, what is the number one way you want to communicate with your peers, your bosses, coworkers, and the number one answer was 84% of Gen Z said they prefer face-to-face communication.
Wow.
One of the other traits we identified is that we live in a phygital world, being that we see no difference between the physical and digital worlds. So therefore, we're looking to do everything in the most fast way possible, in the most effective way possible, in the most communicative style. So we really are just looking for all different ways to communicate in the workplace.
So collaboration, you said less collaborative than the prior generation. How do you like to collaborate?
I think it's important to understand that Gen Z is not going to be a generation that won't collaborate. It's not like we're not going to work in teams or groups. It's just not as natural to us. Millennials are by far the most collaborative generation. It shows up in the way they socialize, the way they work, the way they interact with social media platforms. The millennial mentality I always say is that if 2 heads is better than 1, they think, 12 may be better than 2. So naturally, Gen Zers are going to be a little bit more competitive. It might not come as natural, where a millennial may say, hey, I'd love to work with you guys on this. We'll just naturally do it by ourselves. We believe by a massive majority, over 70% of Gen Z believes in the saying, if you want it done right, do it yourself. But I think it's really important that managers in the workplace encourage us to work with groups, encourage us on the value of collaboration, because it won't necessarily come natural to us. But that's not to say when you say, hey, I need you 6 to go work on this, there's a conference room right down there, we will go do it, but naturally we'll defer to doing it ourselves. So I think a lot of encouragement and motivation behind the idea of collaboration will definitely connect.
If I needed to share some feedback with you, how would you want to receive that feedback?
If you're my boss and we're sitting in the same office, instead of maybe going back and forth on 10 emails, maybe just walk over to my desk, ask a question, reconvene at the end of the day, and then we can both go about our business. Because for a couple reasons, it's the most authentic way to communicate in a world where there's so many different ways to communicate. It's hard to tell who's really behind the computer. It really is a great way to build relationships. It's by far the most effective. So we're really just looking to streamline processes. We're really looking to build good relationships in the workplace.
This generation was raised by Gen Xers with very tough, there's winners, there's losers, it's a big world out there, and you have to fight hard. So you can deliver feedback to them straightforward, to the point, no sugarcoating. That's what they're going to want.
Management is a huge topic in terms of what's happening with each generation.
Smart companies that we're working with around the world right now are saying, wow, we need to prepare our millennials. These are going to be the frontline managers. We see these differences. Huge collisions are on the horizon between millennials and Gen Z. So first of all, it's just preparing millennials. What would I prepare them for is, hey millennials, you're so collaborative, you like a lot of teamwork, you play to each other's differences. You've now got a workforce that's a little bit more independent, extremely competitive, might even want your job. They're not being defiant, they're not team players, they're just a little bit more independent and competitive, and adjusting for that management style is definitely going to be one of the most important things.
What should people be doing right now to start preparing or whatever it might be as management at a company?
So what I would really be doing is, I'd say, let's as a company get proactive here. Let's get to know Gen Z. Doesn't mean, like Jonas said, it's not out with the old and in with the new. It's like, what's coming, where can we adapt to, or where can't we, so we can be ready to talk to Gen Z. We can't bend on this one. We're steady here. And so I would first be proactive and learn about Gen Z and how they're different. But I would really be putting effort into training my millennials. We're not seeing enough companies do that. It's happening at the executive level, but it's not down here with the people who are going to be faced day to day. And the differences between millennials and Gen Z is so vast that I would be putting a lot of my attention in training the frontline managers.
Let's talk a little bit about interview and assessment, because I think that process, generally speaking, at most companies doesn't work that well. So talk a little bit about how you would want to demonstrate your skills.
As more and more Gen Zers apply to work at companies like LinkedIn or wherever it may be, because of our wants from colleges, because of our hyper-customized attitude, you're going to see more and more Gen Zers applying for the same job with a huge range of degrees. You're not going to be as easy to compare candidates anymore. So I would say the more you can get towards showing their personality side of it, not just on paper and written exams, whether it be video resumes or having them in and just putting them in front of the team and having conversations, see how they connect as a person. And maybe not look as much into grades and test scores, but more how you think they will fit in the culture, and really give them a chance to show who they are, not what they can do on paper, is going to be huge, because you're going to have such a wide range of people applying for the same job with different majors, minors, and skill sets.
Talk to me about side hustles?
Well, side hustles, I mean, have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
We used to call it moonlighting. You did something on the side, but you never talked about it. What's happened, and we've talked a lot about with Generation Z, is they're in survival mode.
Yeah.
They're super competitive, and technology has really allowed them, to do business. So we've got a generation that, regardless of where they work, they're going to have a side hustle, and that means they'll work full time, but they're going to have something going on the side. Now, there's been a lot of people that will say, hey, Jonah, if you work for me and I walk by your desk at 12 noon and I see you uploading pictures to a website selling stuff, no way. And that's a fair statement until Jonah comes back with, well, then why is it okay for you to email me 8 o'clock at night and expect an answer? And this gets back to what Jonah's saying earlier about how it's not work-life balance, it's blend. So they're gonna come to work, they might be working on their side hustle during the day, but they're working on your job at night. And a lot of people just are not ready for that and they're gonna have it. I think one thing that I would be doing in the recruiting process is get non-competes back on the table. I think non-competes over time have been watered down and kind of aren't paying attention to. If Jonah's working at LinkedIn and he's got a cookie company, probably doesn't matter. But if he's inventing a new social media platform, you probably have an issue. Yeah. So, but they might not see that as much. So I would think get the side hustle out there. They're going to have one, and talk about its place in your business.
Well, this has been incredibly informative. I think this is arguably one of the most important topics in the next decade in business. So I appreciate the time you guys have spent with us.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
And hopefully we can continue this conversation at some point.
You
Love
bet.
to.
Thanks for joining us. And if you're not paying attention to Gen Z, which is a very important demographic and population of over 70 million up-and-coming professionals, you better get smart because it's happening now.
So, as you can see, we're different from millennials, are different from Gen Zs, right? Companies that had invested, for example, on open space, making it like cafeteria style, no more dividers, no more rooms, no more cubicles. When Gen Zs dominate the workplace, that might not be that appropriate anymore, based on their natural style of being more individualistic in their approach, as against millennials who are arguably the most collaborative of all generations. Hopefully you found that helpful, as I did. Now moving on to additional tips on how to actually manage this multi-generational workforce. They say that data is the new gold, right? That's also like replacing the oil when it comes to its value. And that is true. Even for this particular topic, data will be your friend. A savvy HR professional these days should know the age group of his or her employees. For example, in our company, that would be 21 to 35. That is where most of the ages are. So as you can see, we have definitely Gen Z, but most of our employees are belonging to the millennial generation. And so the way that we communicate our employee engagement activities, including the prizes, the way that we write our words are also not really pattern after that, but those are considerations because we also have the other generations in the workforce. So use data to have a roadmap. Start assessing the population. Like I just told you, 21 to 35, for example, and that's how we're guided when it comes to giving away. Let's say, for example, do we give Enchanted Kingdom tickets or do we give vouchers to the spa? Kasi may pagkakaiba, right? Look at the company breakdowns and craft your strategies based on the breakdown, because one approach to all may not really work. Look at the way that you communicate. What are the tools that you're using? Are you just constantly on email? Do you still use the bulletin board? And is that the only ones that you use? Just the bulletin board at, for example, the employee cafeteria? If that is the case only, then you might want to have to do it as well in chat groups. No? Depending again on what works best for your employees. There are various options, various tools these days, there's plenty of them. Some come with licenses and some are free. Now, we've already figured that out. We followed the data. We know the right tools to use for that. How do we chunk our messages? So my video is on, so I'm going to show you a live example. I didn't post it here because these are actually true materials. I don't know if, can it be seen? Can my screen be seen? Here. So this is, I don't know how much you can see, but this is a memo. You would see that it has a particular subject and it says, "Dear employee," and then it goes on and enumerate what the message is. This was our communication regarding traveling from one city to another during the pandemic, what you need to bring, your ID card, your certificate of employment, how do you download that? So this was one page of a memo that went out to our employees using email. And then that was actually partnered with a post at our Facebook workplace. I don't know if you would see it. I hope you will. But it's basically just a short version of that. Just a few words. Literally, this is probably what? 30 words with a link to where you can find your certificate of employment, where you can click on it and then get what you need for you to be able to cross from one city to another. So we created different materials, different words. The other one was formal, citing the requirements of the government. The other one was just really, here's what's happening. This is where you can get what you need. And this is at a collaboration tool called Facebook by Workplace by Facebook. So it works like Facebook. And the other one is a memo, a formal memo sent via email. So you can actually chunk your messages like that. Like you have a huge memo and then you could actually break it down and fill it out using different means to communicate. You can also do some chat groups, right? And then post your announcements there and pin it. Just like, for example, my picture is pinned here on Zoom. Aside from means of communication, this part of the deck tells you that it's best to chunk your message and also understand what will work best for your audience. For example, Gen X, you need to be more persuasive with your words, right? You need to be more engaging. But with millennials, it's the venue of where you say it that we need to spend a little bit more time on, right? Chunking makes it work because that also enables you to actually customize the way that you speak, that you communicate, and where you communicate through. Finally, bringing all of these together, I've said a lot of things. I talked to you about, the differences, how frictions happen, how we should not have judgment over others, how we should be style stepping. But first of all, to be able to manage a multi-generational workplace, what needs to happen is to have it start from here, from the heart. I'm speaking with HR professionals in the room, right? And everything begins with believing in the future. For the Gen Xers, baby boomers, and more so for the traditionalists, it's about accepting that the incoming workers are not the same as us and believing that even if they are not the same with us, they do not have the same qualities that we do, that they could still succeed, that they still have it in them to succeed and navigate the future. That comes with, second, accepting their norm and not calling it out as weird or unheard of or unprofessional, as what you've seen in the survey that was conducted in the verbatims. We have to recognize as well that they have their own aspirations. The Gen Zs today when you ask them what do you want to become, what will you do after college, they won't necessarily just say they want to be a doctor or a lawyer or a nurse. My daughter, for example, wants to be a sports psychologist, whatever that means, right? But that's an aspiration, and the job of people from the earlier generation is to support the future generations with what they truly feel is their path, right? Don't push them around. With acceptance comes the respect, right? And respect means not insisting on our own style versus the other. We talked about common traits and common ways to effectively manage people from different generations. But the one thing that I'd like to highlight here as well is that onlyness or individualism is important. Any manager would know this. Different strokes for different folks. We cannot do away from that philosophy, because at the end of the day, while there are guides on how, in general, people from different age groups act and respond to things, they are individuals too, right? Say, for example, a single mom who is a millennial may not think and act the same way as someone who has her husband gainfully employed somewhere and not earning the breads for the entire family, right? So those are two different individuals. Just be careful not to lose the individuality of each person in your teams just because there are generational characteristics that you've learned today. And finally, my call to action would be, if you are not sure that you truly understand yet, and I'm not pretending to also understand it right down to its very, very core, one way to understand the future generations or the new generations at work is to have next generation advisory board. And this obviously should be comprised of people who are from, yes, all walks of generations, but a little bit more of those that we have not seen yet as much in the workplace, which are your Gen Zs and your Gen Alphas. And with that, hopefully you were able to learn a thing or two. Hopefully you've made some notes, and I'm going to turn this over already to Kate for some Q&A. Kate? Kate, you're on mute.
Like to ask a question, you can type it here in the chat box, or you can also click the raise hand button so you can ask your question directly to our speaker. Okay, but we have a few questions here already. So let me just ask. Let me read this. How can companies effectively manage and leverage the strengths of each generation to build a cohesive and productive team?
Okay, hopefully we know the innate strengths, right, of our employees as individuals first. There are studies that have actually inventoried the soft skills, the aspirations, the values of each generations. And just, quick Google searches would allow you to do that. There are matrices that they follow. For example, what I've shown you, right? If millennials believe that they are the best at communicating, if they will rank their competencies across, leadership, project management, and what have you, then maybe in a project, right, and you need a writer, most likely, maybe you assign it to a millennial, right? And then what is the other one for, let's say, the Gen Zs? What did they say? We say they're good at. So it's actually about leveraging the strengths of people, right, in a particular group, and allowing them to play based on their strengths. The other way to make this sustainable is where people are not so good at, have them buddy up, get mentored by a person that's better at that particular aspect or deliverable, right? And have that person learn a thing or two from the expert or the one that you've seen is best in that particular area. So for example, if the leader is a baby boomer, right, of a particular project, because let's say it appears to be that they really have the best leadership skills, controlling, managing, influencing people to deliver on time, right? It's the strength of the baby boomer in the group. And then you have a millennial writer, right? And you have a Gen Z promoter, right? For your social media, for example. Then have the baby boomer partner up, be more observant with the millennial and the Gen Z in there to learn and absorb how they do it. And also for this baby boomer leader to actually download lessons on effectively influencing people to a proud millennial. And I only, say that because I'm part of that group, right? So that we can be more effective rather than appearing to be, like a know-it-all. So it's about sharing, as you can see. It is about democratizing the knowledge across the group.
Thank you for that answer. Our next question. How do you manage employees who are always against policies? And especially considering that they are older than you. So this was very specific.
Policies do not, as far as I know, do not have any exemption for age. In fact, there are no policies that would say how you make exemptions. It just basically says management discretion, right? It is about just enforcing the rule as is, fair and square, and giving yourself, if it is your role to implement the policy, give yourself the permission to do your job. Because that's what you're paid for. At the end of the day, someone who feels a little bit more superior, probably because of age or tenure, cannot be cited, right, for simply being wrong and just being a senior.
Okay, thank you. Here's again another question. How do we instill tested old ways in dealing with this new generation without them leaving the organization?
Yeah, attrition is a hard one. No, turnover is a lot faster with these generations. First of all, it is about making them feel respected in the workplace, making them feel heard. What engages a Gen Z, for example, is being recognized for the unique talents that he or she brings to the workplace. So when this Gen Z person sees that he or she is given involvements, like for your employee engagement program, can the Gen Z be the forerunner for the month of April, for example, right? And downloading, since the older ones are great at leadership skills compared to the millennials and the Gen Zs, downloading again how to multiply that kind of engagement so that we create people with similar mindsets that welcome the Gen Zs and the millennials and later on the alphas to the workplace. At the end of the day, when they feel that they are living the life in a company, there is less propensity to attrite. But of course, it's always a balance because there's also the Maslow hierarchy of needs. So it's easier said than done. But if you don't get the compensation wrong, the self-fulfillment here at the tip of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think I saw some students, don't forget your Maslow's hierarchy of needs when you work in human resources. It's very important. You're going to have to use it day in, day out. then it won't go wrong. But I'd already admit that they are not like the traditionalists who embrace work as their forever. It doesn't work like marriage for this generation. So also human capital planning should be adjusted to the realities of the new generations.
Okay, and I think this would be our last question because of time constraint. Okay, we have Nel Alberto. He's asking if we have stats of generations in the Philippine workforce.
Do we have stats? I think the NEDA and the DOLE might have something, but I've not seen anything that updated yet. Yeah. Kasi yeah, the pandemic had it really difficult for our government agencies, no? So they were disrupted and they were unable to carry on with as much speed as they were prior to the pandemic. So let's give them a little bit more time. I've not seen one, but siguro maybe Kate, if I find something, I'll funnel it through Ariva and yeah, just share.
Someone is saying here in the chat box, Charles is saying the last update was 2019 pa. That was pre-pandemic pa nga. And someone just gave a realization. She shared this with us. I belong to Gen X, and my challenge in managing millennials employee under our department, parang siya pa yung boss kung makapagtanong and update and follow up. So that's just one thing that one of our participants shared.
Yeah, so to you, Gen Xer, who is having a hard time with this millennial acting like a boss, first of all, forgive. I'm sure hindi niya sinasadya na magangas or to be bossy. That's just the natural tendency of a millennial, appearing as if he or she is bossing around, but that's just the natural way of this generation, but also giving feedback. No, I think in a closed door meeting, you look the person in the eye and say, you know, I find you a little bit off when you do this, your hand gesture or, you know, your tone. You act and think as if, you know your employee best, but I think feedback is key there so that you get mutual respect from each other.
There you go. Thank you so much, Miss Ivy. Wow, truly helpful. I'm sure all of our participants appreciate all the knowledge and the insights that you have shared with everyone. Because of that, I would like to present you with this certificate. Let me read it. Ariva Academy Learning Development at its finest gratefully presents a certificate of appreciation to Ivy Paraluman De Borja for generously sharing her professional expertise and valuable knowledge and wisdom to the delegates of managing generational differences in the workplace, understanding different generations, including incoming Gen Alpha, given this third day of March 2023 via Zoom conference. Signed by Chairman and Chief Strategist, Learning Event Producer J.D. Matienzo, and the President and Chief Learning and Development Strategist, Michelle Irish Malona Samson. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for our speaker, Miss Ivy.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much. And now, before we end our webinar, I'd like to invite everyone to turn on their cameras. Join us for a group photo with our speaker. There you go. For those of you whose cameras are still turned off, join us there. And I'll be calling on the assistance of our technical director, Direct Eric. Can you assist us, please?
Yes, thank you so much, Ms. Gate. So good day, everyone. So we have 2 shots of group picture for this PM session. Okay, you ready for the first shot, guys? Come on. Show me your beautiful smiles. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, and for our second shot, can you give me a 2 thumbs up? Yes, how about 2 thumbs up? Okay, here we go. 2 thumbs up in 3, 2, 1. Yes, thank you so much. Back to you, Miss Kate.
Thank you so much, DJ Eric. And in behalf of everyone from Ariva Academy, I'd like to say thank you to all of our participants all over the Philippines and all over the world. Thank you for being with us on this fantastic Friday afternoon. We're looking forward to welcoming you again in our future learning events. Maraming salamat. God bless you all. Happy weekend, everyone. Thank you.